Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all fine today. As you know, I couldn't broadcast yesterday morning. I had a hospital appointment, but you'll be glad to know that, as it goes, Davies is fit as a butcher's dog, and that the amount of tests I've had in the last wee while, I can assure you folks, I'm as fit as a butcher's dog. I'm gay chuffed with how things went yesterday, and so is the medical profession. You'll be glad to hear. So, this cantankerous old git will be around for a while yet. So he will. And that's Facebook on board. Let's see who's in. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Eddie. Hi, Barbara. Hi, David. Hi, Graham. Stephen. Kirsty. Desiree. Mark Telfer. Margaret Mackay. Hi, Chris. Hi, Fiona. Hi, Andy Scott Bryan. Numbers are climbing nicely. There's some real cracking stuff in the papers today, folks. In fact, since I got the headlines at 7 o'clock this morning, Charlie Cat's been stuck in my lap trying to keep me from bouncing off the bloody ceiling. Honest Doug, first the Facebookers on board. So, I mean, there's some... The reason why the other David's no with me this morning is, you know, he normally comes on Wednesdays. I've asked him to sit this one out. There's going to be some right firecrackers in this one. So if you don't like your aunt, this might not be the show for you. But I'll keep them as balanced as I can. But believe me, there's some crackers in the papers today. So let's get this underway. It's Indy Truck Davey out the truck, not home, in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is a lovely morning. High thin cloud, keeping the strength of the sun up at this point in time. It's 11 degrees. Pollen counts moderate for those who are in North Lanarkshire and have hay fever, like myself. So, lovely morning. That's the weather in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look at your own bloody windy. Right, let's get this thing underway, shall we? First up this morning with the Herald. I'll find it and get it up. As I say, get ready for this one. This morning. I'm right in the mood for this one. First up, the Herald. Swinney goes for quick win and bid to woo voters ahead of election. And this because John Swinney presented his third programme for government to the Parliament in a year, I think it is. And apparently it's to sway voters. We don't need to sway voters. They're coming to us in their droves. They're actually being shoved towards us. Well, what's going on down that road? Alright. We'll get a wee bit more of that further down we get. Let's get that done. Next up, we'll get the Scotsman up. Next up, the Scotsman. Peak rail fares scrapped for good in SNP election push. Swinney also pledges 100,000 extra GP appointments as plans come under fire. Now, with these ones I always go, and who are the plans under fire for? In this case, it's the Tories, the people who wrecked the economy, dragged us out of fucking Europe, burnt the NHS, seen the destruction of the education system in England, and they're trying to fucking have a go at us. Believe me, folks, in every single metric. Because remember, we are not comparing apples and apples here when it comes to systems. We have different legal systems, different education systems, different NHS, the lot. We are not comparing apples with apples. You can take any metric, and when you look at them objectively, The colonies doing far better than the imperial centre by a country fucking mile. In fact, all the colonies are doing better than the centre by a country fucking mile. Why is that? Because we're producing everything that the centre needs. And that includes wealth, because it produces fuck all. It's a service economy. A service economy. You've got to understand that. But by every single metric, if you were comparing apple to apple, the one across that border to the south would be rotten to the fucking core. And I can give you a basic example of that. A basic example. What sort of barbaric society do they have down there? When they're paying for fucking prescription medicines. The only place in the UK where need isn't met free of cost at the door of the NHS. The only fucking place. We talk about moral decline. We talk about economic decline. We talk about intellectual decline. And the prime example of it at this point in time on air is America and England. Fuck. Sorry folks, I say we're off for a flyer of the day. The Rancid has. The doctor will see you now. FM. Now, to be fair to the record, I was going to put this up this morning. Because it's the only paper in Scotland that shows Mr. Swinney and his office its due respect. It says First Minister. And then it goes on with propaganda. Promises 100,000 extra GP appointments. I listened to John's speech, he promised nothing. It's a name, it's an ambition, it's a target. No promise. And there's a reason why it's no promise. Because we can't fix it if we don't control our own budget. And we fucking well don't. The wealth of the colonies is being leached by the colonial master. That's how colonisation works. Hey, as I say, that's how propaganda works, folks. John didn't promise nothing. He set a target. But all of a sudden, in the Brit-Nat rags, it's a promise. And that's why the records haven't said Swinney, they've said First Minister. Because Swinney might not be First Minister tomorrow, but the office will exist. The programme for government will exist. You have to understand politics, folks. And the rags, they understand it. What else did we get? I say Swinney bids to end 8 AM scramble for slots. Well, I don't live in that sort of place. I don't have an 8 AM gamble for slots. We have a well-run surgery with efficient staff. But you know what came to mind when I seen that one? I didn't know there was a plague of fucking slot machines all over Scotland being argued over at 6 AM in the morning. But as I say, I had to think about it because we don't have that lottery for slots in my ward. We have a well-run surgery. And when you talk about waits in the NHS, I was told I could wait up to 48 weeks for the tests I've just had. I waited 12 weeks. Not real. And peak rail fares axed. And booze to be allowed on trains again. Don't know if that's a good idea. But I guess that's John's attempt to woo some knuckle draggers. Saying that, there's some right good boozy parties on the train. Right, next up we have the right-wing English rag. Let's that go. Let's stick up the first of the right-wing English rags, the fail. The Daily Fail. And it fails again. Tories attack SNP's broken promises as FM ridiculed over party strategy. You can't believe the brass neck they've got to print this rubbish. Tories attack SNP's broken promises. SNP don't make promises. They're a proper political party. They have aims, objectives, targets. As FM ridiculed over party strategy. The party has just fucking put itself into extinction mode. Criticises the most successful party since devolution came about. You couldn't make this shit up. Swinney's flimsy bid to clear up his own mess. Let me fucking rewrite that for you. Swinney's strong position as people recognise the mess belongs to the colonial master, who controls the fucking purse strings. And you don't have to believe me. You can listen to Wes Streeton pre-election when he was talking about the state, when they were talking about the state of the Welsh NHS. And Streeton tells the press, looking straight to camera, the way I am now, all roads lead to Westminster. Let me repeat that for the stupid. All roads lead to Westminster. That's how colonialism works. For Francis. Next up, we have the loony rag, the Express. This one's specifically designed for those who have only just grasped the basic concepts of reading. This paper is specifically designed for those whose knuckles drag that low that their elbows scrape the ground. And I mean that. Their knuckles drag that low that their elbows scrape the ground. And the loony rag the Express has, kings and becks should console each other over errant offspring. Their offspring are no fucking errant. They're establishing themselves as people in the world, and used two spanners are about as much help as an ashtray and a motorbike. Scots Major is held over wife's death on kayak trip. Having a scuba that's about. Swinney unveils programme for government full of U-turns and policy rehashes. U-turns, probably because of the outcome of the Supreme Court's judgment on a badly scripted piece of legislation drawn up in Westminster in 2010 called the Equalities Act. As for policy rehash, that's not how it works. When you have to shelf something because your imperial masters shut the fucking purse strings, then you have to bring them back out and get them accomplished when the imperial master loosens up the purse strings. And it's got similar headline to the fail. Desperate bid to keep flimsy Nats rule. Flimsy! I thought I'd better have a look at how fucking flimsy this is. Should I? Okay, so the flimsy Nats position on the run-up to the next election. 13 points out in front of Labour. 15 points out in front of Reform. Notice I put Reform in front of the Tories. 17 points out in front of the Tories. And 26 points in front of the Fib Dems. No sounding fucking flimsy to me, English parties in Scotland. Sounds pretty fucking solid, Daily Express. But we have another couple of parties that get polled here in Scotland as well. The SNP are 24 points clear of the Greens and 33 points clear of the Alpha Party. Doesn't it sound that fucking flimsy to me? But that, folks, is how propaganda puts doubt in people's mind. Put doubt in people's mind on the viability of the party out in front. Doesn't it just happen here? It happens down south as well. It happens everywhere. Because the press is not there to hold truth to power anymore. As we already know, it's there to set a narrative. In this case, in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's there to keep the narrative of the coloniser forefront. That's why we find that our media here in Scotland belittles everything that we do. As I said, by any fucking metric, if you were comparing apples to apples, every single service in Scotland is miles in front of every service in the colonial centre. But the propaganda message from the colonial centre is, we must be made to think that we are inferior to the colonial master and that we need the colonial master to run the shop for us. That's the whole point of this shit. As I say, by every single metric, if you're comparing apples with apples, north and south of the border, we are way in front, folks. The university tuition fees, so we don't have the intellectual decline they're having down that road. No dental charge for the under 25s. Free eye test for everybody. The probation service in public hands. Brand new school estate. Brand new hospital estate. Fuck, I could go on all day. By every single metric. But these colonial masters need us to feel inferior to them so that they can maintain control. Keep that fixed in the forefront of your mind when you look at the press, folks. That's why I don't allow the BBC in my house. I'm not having the colonial master tell me for the minute I go out of my bed in the morning, the minute I go to my bed at night, that I'm shite at everything. Right. That was only rag, the Express. But that flimsy lead, no fucking flimsy at all. There's a more than a 10-point lead our Mace parties and almost a 20-point lead our two parties. Three parties. Ashbury, I'm not getting into that debate. I've said looking at constituency to constituency, including region to region. I'm not getting into that fucking debate. As for waste of votes, waste of list votes, it is their vote to waste. And I say, I'm not getting into it. Now, let's move on. Next up, we have the Times. Because this one's drawn out a bit today. What's the Times got for us? Peak rail fares to be ditched in cynical SNP pre-election giveaway. Cynical. I guess the Times didn't cover the pilot scheme. I guess the Times didn't cover the fact that the SNP regretted having to reinforce them because of the public sector pay rises and no knowing whether there was going to be enough wriggle room in the budget to be able to keep subsidising the non-peak fares. As it turns out, public sector price settled down a bit and there is wriggle room, so it's coming back. As to cynical giveaway, They all fucking do it. Watch Labour throwing sweeties about as if they're going out of fashion and they run up to the next GE. And anger at Indian payoff and biggest deal since Brexit. Like Farage is going to have a fucking field day with this one, isn't he? So, here we are in terminal economic decline, and the fucking idiots in the colonial parliament have just given tax breaks to overseas business owners and their future employees to the disadvantage of companies of non-Indian origin in the UK. And all the people in England who wanted control of your borders, there you go. You wanted to stop the brown people, you're getting more brown people. There you go. And they're getting tax incentives to come here. You couldn't make it up. Disadvantaging companies with people from different origins than Indian. We're already in terminal economic decline. For fuck's sake. But we are getting more people coming in now. That's going to really give Farage and his entourage of knuckle draggers a fair bit of field day to play with. Who's running that Labour Party? Even though they're right wing, and we know that right wing, the right seem to be a wee bit thick. And England's already in a terminal intellectual decline because of tuition fees. Who is running that? Who's advising these fucking idiots that disadvantaging other companies who own these islands in favour of companies run by people from India who are now going to bring their relatives here to work in their businesses in national insurance exempt, giving them an advantage on everybody else? You couldn't make it up. Are they trying to incite a riot down that fucking road? You see, you wonder who's running that political party. They haven't got a Scooby. They say, we know the right are a wee bit thicker than most, but Labour seem to be they seem to have their finger right off the fucking pulse, that's for sure. Right, that was the Times. Next up we'll go, I think it's the Scum next, and we don't put that up. And it's got Bruckner wrote of vile child kidnap fantasy. And the cops found guns, toys and kids' clothing in his lair. Maddie, the unseen evidence. Oh, yeah, you know, things must be really fucking bad down that road, folks. And I mean really bad down that road. When the Scum is scrambling to go to Germany for a front line cover headline on its fucking rag. Hello. Aye, I know that India and Pakistan are going at each other. We could be having a lot of Indian people coming very, very soon. That's really going to suit the knuckle draggers doing that fucking road. Can you make it up? But the Scum has to go all the way to Germany for a bit of push on a 20-year-old crime to keep any real headline off the front fucking page. Wow. Murdoch's really been cowed, hasn't he? Unbelievable. Next up, we get a Telegraph. What nonsense is this rag got for us today? Oh, sorry, that's not the Telegraph. Sorry, next up's the Guardian. Let's see what nonsense it's got for us today. Israel minister says Gaza will be destroyed and people driven out. I guess the Guardian's not telling us anything that we don't already know. And this is a prime example of moral decline here in the West. These monsters are openly conducting, speaking of, and bragging about a genocide, and everybody's sitting back with their feet up and watching it fucking happen. Now, we talk about intellectual decline, moral decline, and economic decline. This is an example of moral decline. Carney tells Trump Canada's not for sale. Yep. He also told me shut up. It was quite funny. And England faces drought as reservoir levels fall. Well, England, you know what? That's what happens when you privatise your water companies. They haven't built any new reservoirs. So, over the period where your water companies have been privatised and your rivers have been getting full of shite and things like that, these lot haven't invested a single fucking penny, and they've destroyed your infrastructure. And now you're going to run out of water. I guess they'll be coming looking for ours, folks. I guess we're going to have to fucking bail them out again. Because unlike the monsters in Westminster who are watching these poor people in Gaza die, we haven't got the heart to watch our English cousins go fucking thirsty. Well, some of us have. Right, let's get a Guardian then. And let's put up the Telegraph. What's the Tory graph got for us today? Two-tier tax deal for Indian migrants. Oofed. As I say, talk about fucking stupidity. Talk about stupidity. Talk about setting one group of people up against another. Wow. Fucking madness. And as my good friend old Nick pointed out in the comments, India and Pakistan's gone at each other. So could be a big influx of Indian people coming soon. Okay. In fact, there will be a big influx of Indian people coming soon. Because if I own a cash and carry, if I own a food distribution company, if I own an Indian restaurant, I'm not paying the UK government national insurance. I'm weighing after people who work there that know and bringing my family in. My friends in for India. And I'm going to do it one at a time so that I've got a long period of tax exemption. Fucking mental. Let's see. Intellectual decline. Right, next up, the National. This one's a fucking stoter. Gaza aid crew stranded on ship after Israeli attack. And this is the news that they're that determined the people of Gaza starved to death that a ship transporting aid to Israel to go to Gaza was bombed. Investigating Trump in Scotland. Would buffer zone law have passed now with Trump back in the White House? This is buffer zones run family planning clinics, as we call them here in Scotland, because they don't just offer abortion, they offer a sexual health advice, they offer contraception and things like that. And the very definition of stupidity is there for all to see, presented to us by our First Minister John Swinney. Now, what is the very epitome of stupidity? The very example of stupidity is to continue doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. John Swinney has just put more of the same on the table, and is expecting a different outcome. It would appear that our First Minister has not been listening to the colonial master. The colonial master has made it clear that he won't grant you a Section 30 order. Indy could happen if SNP win big. Swinney, possibility of vote during next Holyrood term. No, there's no, John. There is no possibility of a vote in a referendum whatsoever. Nurse! Nurse! Swinney's off his meds! Fuck. It would appear that Mr. Swinney is wanting to try the political extinction route as well. Just as well as shit going in Westminster means that you need him and the SNP buffer us. First Minister unveils 100,000 new GP appointments. No, he didn't. And peak rail fares to be axed for good. And apparently there's been a list of new candidates for the 2026 being released by the SNP. But as I say, that is the epitome of stupid. To continue to do the same thing and expect a different outcome. I guess he didn't hear Starmer when he said there will be no referendum during this Westminster term. And when he gets beat by reform, Nigel Farage has told us that he is going to end devolution for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Which is going to be funny because it was a period he doesn't know about the Northern Ireland set up and the Treaty of Union that pertains to Northern Ireland. But it's no surprise that Nigel Farage doesn't know that actually devolution in Northern Ireland's baked into their Treaty of Union. Fucking tithead. Right. So that's the National. They say I do criticise the SNP folks. I know people try to call me an acolyte and things like that. I'm a long-term party member. If I want to change it, use a lot of a big enough block for us to make an impact. Where we go next? We'll get the eye. So I had the shut it down by mistake. There we go, the eye. Historic UK trade deal with India faces backlash over tax breaks for migrant workers and their employers. Don't forget that, and their employers. Which will see Indian migrants given an advantage in the workplace. PM hails the biggest free trade agreement since Brexit, which is expected to add nearly $5 billion a year to Britain's economy by 2040 and slash tariffs on exports such as whisky and cars. Well, the whisky industry will like that. When it comes to cars, will there be any car plants here to sell to India? Do the consumers in India have enough money to buy a British-made car? And the Tories attacked two-tier Keir because he set up a two-tier tax system for businesses. Wow. And he's also disadvantaged the UK worker in the UK employment market. You couldn't make it up. The party who claims to be the party of the worker has just thrown UK workers of all origins except for Indian under the fucking bus. Wow. Talk about fucking stupid. It would appear that John's no only better. But let's get him through this election. Let's get him to get us a win in the election. Let him send his request for Section 30 order down the road and be told fucking no. And then let's replace him with somebody who's actually going to put in the manifesto for the 2029 election that if we win a majority of MPs, we will convene the Grand Committee and dissolve the fucking union. Because that covers all bases. You'll have had a plebiscite. You'll have made your legal move in the Grand Committee, and then you'll make your declaration. That's how it needs to be done. But let's give John that big majority so he can at least protect us while we're going through all that. Or his successor can protect us while we go through all that. Right. Quite ranty today, folks. But rightly so. Right, what's the Stars got for today? Well, nonsense, of course. The Stars get nonsense, because that's what the Stars for. Hollywood exclusive. Ryan, I'm addicted to Rex. And I thought, okay then. Some guy's watching something that he's addicted to. But it turns out it's got to do with football. Anyway, it says Deadpool hero tells your star he watched Wrexham's winner 70 times. Now, you can work that out for yourself. Apparently Wrexham have won something. And this guy who is an actor has watched it back a few times. Maybe he's for Wrexham, I don't know. Anyway, I have no idea what it really is. Well, I've got an idea what it's about, but I've no inclination to look any fucking deeper into it. It's an actor, and it's football. No my bag. Right. A bit long-winded today, but I had to get it all in. Some of the things I've just said had to be fucking said. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it informative. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10:30. And David and I will be back in the afternoon. Because we need to go and look at the programme for government in depth. There'll be more in there than the headlines of fix the NHS, lift people out of poverty, grow the economy. Fucking nonsense. Can't do 1 and 2 because Westminster holds the purse strings. Can't do number 3 because Westminster holds all the economic levers except for income tax. Them all. That's why it states in the list of reserved fucking things, economy. Look it up. Right. And I say thanks very much to everybody who tuned in today in such large numbers. If you made a contribution today in the form of a super chat, thanks very much. Obviously, I've been off in one, so I haven't been paying attention to the comments really. Thanks very much to the moderators for moderating. Look after yourselves, folks. Be back tomorrow. You get 2 doses of Davy tomorrow, and you get the other Davy. Maybe we're at it. I'm off to read the programme for government, and have a look and see if the details of this fucking trade deal have been published. Because no doubt in there there'll be things that will be detrimental to Scotland. That I can assure you. Oh, but there is something to cheer us all up. Clyde Cymru's just overtaken Labour in Wales in the polls by 12 points.